Awesome. Thanks, Mark. Hello, everyone. I'm Cheryl Thompson, the Senior Technology Consultant here at Ingram Micro, supporting the IBM services and systems to our business partners in the West Coast. And my counterpart, who you just heard from, Mark Miller, he supports you, our partners on the East Coast. I want to thank you for joining Ingram Micro's IBM Systems and Service webinar series. Today, we're going to explore IBM's SAP HANA and those solutions that IBM have put together for you, our business partners, from a systems perspective and from a services perspective, so you can have a go-to-market strategy with SAP HANA. Today, presenting with us from the system side of the house, we're going to have Rich LaFrance from a power perspective. And then we have Earl Springer and Jose Rodriguez from a from a storage and software-defined storage solution perspective. And then we have Shay Arrington and Earl Thorpe from a TSS services perspective. Thank you all for joining, and thanks to our presenters for presenting. With that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Rich LaFrance, if you can kick us off.
Great. Thank you, Cheryl, and thank you, everyone, for attending. So what I'd like to do is I've taken content from many presentations in SAP HANA on IBM Power. I've done one from Scale Out. I've taken them from Scale Up. I've taken them from processor pooling and kind of consolidated them all into a single slide deck. So what I'd like to do is share with you a very high level, introduce you to where IBM is and where we're headed. And then if you want to have follow-on deeper dives, we can arrange that through Mark or Cheryl or myself. So there's a lot of enthusiasm with SAP HANA. There's a lot of movement in the market. A big part of that is people that have SAP environments have to move to SAP HANA. Just recently, SAP has extended the standard support for third-party databases until 2027 and have moved the non-support to the year 2030, which seems like it's a ways off. However, if you look at this particular time, there are still a number of clients that hadn't migrated given the 2025 date. So we want to make sure, one, people are aware of it, make sure they start their migration, because it's not just a database, it's a whole environment. So if you look at IBM's momentum, 2,500 clients in less than 48 months, we are definitely gaining market share, not only in the scale-up environment where you have large databases, but what we're finding now is with these fighter pilot configurations, which I will show you in the scale-out or clustered environment, we're starting to gain momentum there as well. We were a winner of the SAP Pinnacle Award for infrastructure. That's primarily based on shared processor pools, Power VM, and other technologies, and we'll speak to those. But the biggest thing is we now have the ability to do 24 terabyte databases for SAP HANA in the back warehouse. So those that are new to what's happening in the SAP strategy, currently with this third-party database support, you typically have one database for every application. What this HANA database is going to do is provide a single database, and it'll be an SAP database that'll tie all the applications into a single database. It's much simpler, and they've given them through the year 2027 through standard support for their existing environments, which is going to come up quickly, and then extended support through the year 2030. But everyone with SAP solutions will need to move to SAP HANA, and that's why there's all this activity. So what makes SAP HANA on Power better? Well, the nice thing is you can provision faster. Through one-button implementations, we can go ahead and we can implement an instance. We scale affordably. We can actually, if we need additional processor capacity, we can add 1/10, 0.01 of a processor. If we need to increment memory, we can do that in 1 gig increments. So very granular. It's on the spot. The nice thing is you might have 2 or 3 databases on a server. They may not all need an additional core. Well, if this one needs 0.2 cores and this one needs 0.03 cores, we can actually share all that through shared processor pools, and I'll show you that here momentarily. Maximize uptime. The nice thing about the ability with live partition mobility to perform maintenance on a database, the nice thing is you never have to take the database down. You move it over, you make whatever maintenance changes you do, and then you bring the partition back. And then lastly, faster insights. And we'll talk to that in terms of the reason you're going with SAP HANA is you want not only a fast database, but you want a reliable database. And the faster you get the information, that's how you get your return on investment. So let's talk about scaling affordably. In a typical environment, if you did not have Power VM, which allows you this very granular capacity, what you end up with, perhaps you're going to activate an additional 1 core or 2 cores or 6 cores, depending on what that partition size needs to be. If I only need 1 gig, I can activate 1 gig, and I still have that available capacity for other workloads. So I don't have what's called underutilized memory. Same thing with the cores. If I don't need a core, why activate a whole core? Activate what I need, and that's what I will license to. So this makes it very efficient, it makes it very quick, and very granular. So we talk about how do you optimize size. Here's a perfect example where I have dedicated cores. At any particular time, a workload's demands are going to vary. And so what you see here are dedicated cores, and at various times different utilization patterns. The problem with this, it ends up to be underutilized or oversized and not effective. If we go ahead and we share all these processors, so now what I can do is I can take the capacity for the entire pool. I only have to license for the pool. And oh, by the way, I've minimized my underutilization, because if I have capacity available in VM2 and VM1 has capacity that they're not using, I can go ahead and I can share that. It's a very simple. Shared processor pools are common in the industry, and SAP does, under Power VM, provide that a hard partition, which is why we're able to processor license to the number of pools, not the total number of cores. We have this virtual persistent memory, and the idea behind that is there are times when the database will need to have maintenance completed. And what we'll do is we'll go ahead and we'll let them shut down the database. However, we will keep the contents of the database live in what we call DRAM, or dynamic memory. And what happens there is, so now when the maintenance is done, you go to bring the database back up, you no longer have to go ahead and reload and reactivate all the data. The data is in the memory, it's ready to go, and it allows you to bring it up 17 times faster. But look at this, 30% shutdown, because you don't have to shut down the database. So let's look at sizing. With the new SAP TDI-5 rules, it's up to the client, working with the business partner and IBM, to actually size how much processor, how much memory they need. It's very important that they understand the hardware vendor is responsible for sizing. So what happens is, if you go ahead and do a TDI-5 and you oversize it, well, you've got an underutilized server. SAP is not responsible for that. Vice versa, if you don't size it correctly, now you've undersized it, SAP is not responsible for that. So what IBM has done is we've come up with a couple of sizing methodologies, and I'll take you through those. But for the most part, SAP, which is an output that you'll get from the SAP application, can provide you what the current processing requirements are, what the current memory requirements are, and then we can go ahead and we convert that from Power 7 to Power 9, Power 8 to Power 9. But the nice thing is there are sizing methodologies. So what we've done, just as a rule of thumb, if it's a database less than 2 terabytes, you're typically looking at a scale-out box or a cluster box. You look at 2 terabytes to 8 terabytes, that's our enterprise level, where it's a scale-up. Then greater than 8 terabytes, E980. And you'll find that the E980 can now go up to 64 terabytes of memory. So it's a very large database. There are clients that use it. We do have clients that have larger than 64 terabytes. In that particular case, you'd register with IBM and SAP, just so we kind of keep track of the environments. Probably the most important thing is to use all the different processor variances, because you'll find that if you only need 11 cores, don't do 12. If you only need 8, don't do 12, because what you're ended up with is technology that you're going to pay for that you can be underutilized. And then you can also, as an alternative, you'll see reference here to Power 8. And the reason that's down there is there are clients who are in the process of moving their SAP environments. They can go ahead and start their migration on Power 8, and then when they get to Power 9, they can go ahead, do a backup, restore, and both environments are completely compatible. So let's look at what we're doing in a less than 2 terabytes environment. 80% of SAP implementations are 2 terabytes or less. So what IBM has done to make not only configuring these, but sizing these easier, we've come up with these configurations. There's configuration B, C, and D. A, B, and C are all internal memory, internal disks. And what this is, if you go with this particular package or these configurations, you don't have to go for special bid pricing because it's already built in there. It's already supported and designed by IBM. They've been certified by SAP. So this makes it really nice to go into these smaller databases, quickly go in there, put in a proposal, quickly get them on ordered, priced, and implement it through IBM Lab Services, or business partners are allowed to provide their own services as well. So these are how we're getting to less than 2 terabytes. If you look at configuration D, for those larger databases, you do have the option to add a V5K storage externally. For those that are less than 2 terabytes, and SAP is really pushing the cloud right now. We're seeing that from our clients continually ask us. Well, if you look at this, this is all infrastructure as a service. The E980 has published the highest performance in the cloud. This is on the IBM virtual server. More importantly, if you look down the list, if you look at the top 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, IBM has 4 of those. So for those clients that want to look at the cloud, they can consider IBM in the cloud as a platform, and we will deliver the highest performance. They still get the benefits of Power VM with the scalar, affordable, and flexible. IBM is unique in that for those clients that have on-premise implementations on IBM Power Systems, we can go ahead and we can completely be flexible with off-premise implementations as well. So perhaps your production environments, which are larger databases, are on-premise. Your development or QA environments are out in the cloud because those tend to be smaller databases. We can go ahead, we can pass information back and forth, do a mixes B from one or the other, common BIOS. So we really have an integrated hybrid cloud solution, all IBM, all supported by SAP and IBM. So we're unique in that the IBM logo all the way across, compatibility all the way across. So let's take a look about sizing. And we talked about if it's not sized correctly, you end up with a server that's very underutilized. So if we look at the left side of the screen, what you're looking at is an x86, VMware, vSphere. And the problem that they have is they have to install memory in sets of 6. So this is to maintain performance. So because of that, the largest database they'll support in the back warehouse on bare metal, for example, is 3 terabytes. If they go virtualized with given these restrictions, they can go up to 6 terabytes. However, if you're a 1 terabyte, 2 terabyte, or 4 terabyte solution, they don't have the flexibility that you do with Power VM. So here's what we have in the x86. We use the Tetris example because you try to fit the blocks where you can, but ultimately you end up with underutilized, you end up with white squares. With the flexibility of Power VM, the granularity of Power VM, we can actually fill those gaps, maximizing utilization. The other thing that you need to help with the end SAP HANA sizing is Technoloy provides support for HANA on-prem, scale out, scale up. They will support the multi-cloud sizing, and they can actually do a sizing that will get you the best out of both worlds. You know, max your on-prem, max your off-prem or cloud, and they can help you with all of that. They can do validation, they can do configurations, they can do solution design. It should be noted that for configurations, Technoloy will validate or answer questions. Unfortunately, they cannot complete configurations for a business partner. So in a nutshell, what we kind of like to say is stand out against x86. Sell the value prop. We're flexible. We're resilient. We have 99.995 availability on-prem and 99.995 in the cloud, the best availability in the industry. We are currently recognized by SAP with the Pinnacle Award for Infrastructure. And with the Power 9 portfolio, scale out to enterprise, now most recently SAP on the cloud, we've got a complete portfolio, and the momentum really is in IBM's favor. We're gaining market share, and we invite you to take the journey with us. And with that, I will go ahead and hand it over to Earl. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Rich. Let me just switch screens here. Perfect. Looks like it's working. So welcome, everybody. Just want to take the time to say we always appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to hang out with us, to talk a little bit about IBM systems and services and so on. So I'm going to speak on the SAP HANA storage perspective. Rich did a great job talking about some of the differentiators with SAP HANA on IBM Power Systems versus x86. I'm sure all of you obviously are familiar with SAP and primarily what it does. I just want to reiterate a couple things here. One, for the most part, it really isn't an out-of-the-box solution. You know, for most of our customers, as Rich was alluding to, we have that deadline coming up of 2027. It used to be 2025. I think originally it was 2020. That's how ambitious SAP thought the world would be about upgrading to HANA or transitioning to HANA, but not the case. So even 7 years away might be may be challenging for a lot of our customers because of there's a lot that goes into SAP because it isn't an out-of-the-box solution. It's a heavily customized solution for most of our customers. Yeah, I mean, out of the box, it does have some great capabilities. You know, SAP, as you see here, these are some of the many of different, you know, frameworks or components that are available that customers can use with SAP. You know, there may be a customer that all they do is manage people, right? So maybe there are an outsourcing, you know, HR type company, and maybe they'll use SAP to manage, you know, human resources, and out of the box, it meets their needs, right? They don't want any customization, the GUIs or the reporting, things like that. And on the contrast that, we might have a customer that all they do is project management, and but you know, they'll require some customization in their SAP environment because they're managing, you know, some very niche type projects. So what, you know, out of the box, SAP provides may not suit their needs. And then of course, we have, you know, another example of a large enterprise, let's say manufacturing company, and they want to see with a couple mouse clicks everything about their business, end to end, you know, from sourcing of raw materials to the processing of the materials, manufacturing of products, the warehousing, the sales, the shipping, you know, logistics side of it, you know, and SAP can be customized. There's a whole application layer on top of this that, again, customers can build or have built, you know, through maybe you as a business partner have those capabilities to custom build applications for customers that integrate in with their SAP environments, or help customers integrate their existing applications they have already into SAP. And so that's why 7 years may be not enough for a lot of our customers. But the reason why I mention all this is because depending on what components or aspects of SAP are used, obviously can determine the type of storage that is required for the customer, right? So as Rich mentioned too, right now we have two architectures that customers are primarily using. We have the old NetWeaver architecture that came out, I think, in the 90s, early 90s. And as Rich said, this is that multi-tier, N-tier client-server architecture that we've known and loved for a long time. It was great when it was released, but it doesn't meet the customer's needs today, right? Also, it's an on-premise type solution only, right? Obviously, that doesn't meet the customer's needs today. They're looking at, obviously, they like this multi-cloud story, right? Or they want to have choice. Maybe they want to go all in cloud. They can get that with the new HANA, obviously, platform. And then, as Rich was alluding to as well, about traditional relational database, NetWeaver was completely driven by, you know, third-party relational databases, you know, what do you call it? Oracle, apologies. IBM DB2 and SQL Server, you know, those were some of the popular ones that back end the applications through the NetWeaver platform. Now, being heavily reliant on third-party, you know, relational databases, all that performance, you know, of the NetWeaver environment is primarily driven by, or I shouldn't say driven by, but it's primarily dependent on, you know, storage for a lot of its performance. Contrast that to HANA, as Rich was saying, it's all in memory, and being in memory, it's dependent on, obviously, the server environment. So performance is primarily driven by CPU and RAM, but storage still is, like I said, is important for performance. I'm going to show you how in a second. Again, this is my reiteration of just that end of support 2027, and which obviously is going to give us opportunity equally across the board for everybody to help our customers transition to the new S/4HANA platform. Now, so we're fully aware, SAP HANA, in-memory database. Why is storage still important if it's all in memory? Well, just a couple of reasons. One, we can still drive performance. for SAP HANA environments, and I'll show you that in a second. And of course, it's all about data protection as well. We need to help our customers protect data, and storage is probably the best way to do that in the easiest way. But now, this is more on the x86 side. I know Power servers have something called, virtual persistence, which is an awesome differentiator for IBM Power systems. But in the x86 space, they don't have the luxury of having that technology. So they rely on something called data persistence, which is data from residing in memory. Obviously, memory is volatile, so when the power is turned off, the server, somebody trips over the power cord, or the server crashes, whatever, all that data, that HANA in database environment just vaporizes, disappears. So we need to create something called persistence. So you need to create a copy of everything in something called a persistence tier, persistence layer, right? So that when the server has to reboot or boots up again, it can actually restage everything into memory again from this persistence tier. Again, Power Systems has that virtual persistence, so it can actually reboot really fast. But we need to do that, and HANA likes to, about every 5 seconds, all the changes that took place in memory, it likes to write out to its persistent layer. Of course, the faster we can accommodate those writes, obviously SAP HANA can actually do more work. And again, 100% dependent on storage for that. Although, on a side note, there is obviously the newer storage class memory, Intel Optane on the x86 space becoming very popular. They do have the ability in the x86 space to maybe use some of that Intel Optane to create that data persistence tier. So it'll be a little faster than traditional, flash-based storage that we're all used to. Of course, we could, obviously not everything fits into HANA. Rich stated that about 80% of SAP HANA environments are 2 terabytes or less in size. But obviously there are environments, the other 20% are obviously larger than that. And but there are reasons why they have a certain amount of RAM. It could be cost, right? Because RAM can be expensive. It's like the futures market, right? RAM goes up and down depending on the manufacturers, I should say. Sometimes the RAM is scarce, and sometimes there's a glut. So pricing constantly changes in RAM. So customers may not necessarily have the amount of RAM that their server supports. In that case, obviously the entire HANA environment cannot be loaded into memory. So it'll do some fetching, right? So it also try and preempt what the applications or users are going to need next. So it tries to stage data. So it takes data from storage, external storage environment, and pre-stages it in anticipation that it's going to be needed, right? And then of course, tiering, data tiering. HANA has the ability to actually tier data based on need, and it has some tiering technologies that it can take advantage of. Native storage extension is one, and dynamic tiering is another. And this is sort of like a high-level overview of, I guess, the tiering capabilities. Obviously, anything hot you want in memory. Obviously, you always want that persistence layer. So anything in memory basically is mirrored to the persistence layer. And then we could use storage class memory, for that. And then, of course, there's what we call the warm store. This is data that may not necessarily be needed right away, but will be needed eventually, or was recently accessed but hasn't been accessed in a set period of time. It gets demoted down to the warm tier, which is flash-based storage, SSDs. For the most part, SAP HANA loves flash. But we do have the ability to have hard disk drives into an SAP HANA solution for really cold storage. And again, pardon me jumping back here, but that depends on what components or, other SAP applications are being used in the solution. For example, the customer is using SAP IQ, which is it's like a data warehouse application. Then they can take advantage of using hard disk drives. And if that's the case, we can actually use IBM Cloud Object Storage as that cold tier in a HANA solution. Okay, so HANA has the ability to obviously be fully implemented in the cloud or fully implemented on-premise, or customers can also have that hybrid experience. When obviously from a cloud perspective, customers are at the mercy of their cloud providers in terms of hardware. They don't get a choice in the hardware typically. But for the on-premise side of HANA solutions, customers do have some choice. They can go with a fully integrated appliance or a converged system that specific manufacturer or vendors are actually integrating. And if you look here, you see they're probably all x86 vendors that are doing this. Obviously, it's simple, great for probably for small, SAP HANA type solutions. But customers that need a little more flexibility or larger scale and so on, they'd have to go with what is called tailored data center integration, or TDI. This is basically the custom built side. And this is where we play on the IBM side, right? We're all about building the right solutions at the right size for our customers. And how do we know what components are supported, from all the different vendors? Well, SAP actually keeps something called a HANA directory, hardware directory. It's also a software directory. And it highlights information on supported servers, of course, and storage products. And of course, power system is there. And of course, pretty much all of our storage products have been vetted and approved, certified by SAP, to support HANA environments. So you see the entire flash system family, the SAN volume controller, our DS8000, elastic storage system, cloud object storage solutions as well. The only thing that isn't appliance-based and supported is really the TS7700 virtual tape library, right? But just put emphasis on a couple things here. One, typically you never want to leave. I want to leave. You never want to lead with DS8000 unless the customer already has a DS8000 in their environment already. But you wouldn't want to lead with DS8000 for a HANA solution because it is expensive. Same thing with ESS and Spectrum Scale. They're not the lowest cost solution. They may be great on performance and so on, but they're very complex, to set up, to configure. And it's, again, if the customer has these products already in their environment, great. We could actually allocate some of the resources of those offerings to SAP HANA, no problem. But we definitely want to lead with the flash system because of cost and performance. The bang for the buck is much better with flash systems. And obviously, we sort of take that large, medium, small approach with flash systems. I'll talk about that in a second. But flash systems, just to put a little more emphasis on that, does offer some capabilities, features, functions, capabilities that SAP HANA environments can take advantage of, right? And that's primarily driven by the IBM Spectrum Virtualized software stack running on the flash system products. So we can offer, high availability and resiliency and disaster recovery, and we could do data at rest encryption, and we could have scalability up to 32 petabytes, depending on the product. And of course, we can integrate into cloud. We can basically have a multi-cloud, storage environment. We can set that up very easily thanks to Spectrum Virtualized. And then we have some unique hardware capabilities as well that can enhance SAP HANA environments to help drive things like efficiency and obviously performance and so on. So, and we have those capabilities stretching all the way from the low, entry-level space all the way to the higher performance enterprise class flash system products. They share a common feature set. So with that, based on that, we could actually do small, medium, large kind of sizing for SAP HANA environments. And I just tried to put together some rough numbers of basically rules of thumb on how to, roughly or easily scale at flash system storage environments for HANA. But we do have some complementary software products that play into HANA as well. It's not all about the hardware. So we have an edition of Spectrum Protect called Spectrum Protect for Enterprise Resource Planning, ERP. And of course, SAP HANA is an ERP application. So obviously, it was designed for SAP HANA. And Spectrum Protect allows us to basically do both on-premise and off-premise backups and replication of SAP HANA environments. And as you can see, we can back up to flash, disk, tape, object storage to the cloud very easily with, and we never have to shut down the SAP HANA, database environment to back it up with Spectrum Protect for ERP. So we also have Spectrum Copy Data Management, CDM. So Spectrum Copy Data Management allows customers, for those of you who aren't too familiar with it, but it allows customers to schedule, automate, and manage those point-in-time copies of data that are important to SAP HANA environments, right? So they can basically integrate CDM into their environment. And it's not only about IBM storage environments, it actually, CDM works with pretty much all the popular storage vendors. So customers can have a single point-in-time copy management system for their entire storage environment, plus SAP HANA, because CDM has the ability to seek out and find SAP HANA databases, and it doesn't need a special agent to do that. It can discover those databases and then say, hey, do you want me to do point-in-time copies of this? And obviously you enter some credentials and so on. And after that, it manages all the snapshots and those point-in-time copies and clones, and to meet the needs of the business, right? So, and it's not only about data protection; it's also about data reuse as well. That makes copy data management basically a much-needed application in most enterprise environments today. Okay, and then just to summarize, obviously there is that 2027 mandate by SAP that all customers have to transition to the new S/4HANA environment. That's great for us. Obviously, it creates opportunity, so we should definitely take advantage of that opportunity while we have it. And then just recap that IBM storage is certified. Pretty much all the storage products are certified for SAP HANA, right? We definitely want to lead with flash systems for HANA solutions because of the capabilities of flash system products that help HANA environments drive efficiency, and obviously you can protect customers' data, DR, HA capabilities as well. And we can obviously cater to any size HANA environment, from large to small alike. And we definitely want to be able to have conversations on Spectrum Protect and copy data management with our HANA conversations, right? And I got some resources for you that you guys can look at. From a sizing perspective, I know Rich put some emphasis on sizing. We have some sizing capabilities, but typically those tools aren't available to the business partners yet. But we definitely, from the distributor side, Ingram Micro, and of course, there's also IBM Technoloy, which can assist with that. So I'll do my ruthless plug for the sizing aspect. But yeah, we have some information for you as well. And with that, I am going to hand it over to our good friends on the services side. And I believe, let's see.
I think, is it Eric?
Yeah, Eric, are you there?
Yeah. Hi there. Yeah, let me go ahead and
you, my friend.
Thank you. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Hang on just a second. All right. let's go ahead and put this into presenter mode. All right, everyone see that okay?
You bet.
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, my name's Eric Thorpe. Appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. Just some background for me. I actually spent 3 years at SUSE and now have moved over to the IBM side as one of the BDEs under Hector. Been here for about 3 months and excited to talk to you guys a little bit today about SAP HANA infrastructure and IBM Power Systems with SUSE as the OS. So really just a quick agenda. We're going to go over why IBM Power and SUSE are the best choice for SAP, solutions to help improve SAP availability between SUSE Manager and live patching, just some news about virtual P-memory support. Thanks, Rich, for teeing that up for me. And just some customer references and training and resources for you. So SUSE and IBM have had a 20-year relationship. You can kind of see a timeline here. We've been with partners with SUSE for a long time and really worked together, and especially worked together on the SAP HANA on Power solution. With that and a little bit more about the relationship, I'm going to turn it over to Shay, because you definitely don't want to hear my voice the whole time. So I'll let Shay cover this slide.
Thanks, Eric. And I'm Shay Arrington, your dedicated software services resource for Ingram, focusing on both IBM software and multi-vendor support software. So this is a great marrying of those supports that we offer Proactive on. I know that we've been talking about Proactive within the channel a lot lately, and it's really important as we look at how we can help our clients to remain resilient and remain optimal to meet their goals, especially as we're dealing with some of the challenges of COVID. So as the other presenters have showed, SAP is a very sophisticated and powerful, versatile platform that sometimes provides some challenges to our clients in being able to make sure that they're getting support and understanding the functionality and connectivity of all the components involved within SAP. Sometimes for their in-house teams, this can be a little bit of a challenge, and especially since a lot of our clients are having to scale back on those teams, or even having challenges around pulling the teams together. So when we look at how Proactive gives that wonderful layer on top, really connecting the dots of the IBM and SAP HANA relationship, providing all of the wonderful value adds of Proactive that we're familiar with, like the priority response, the dedicated access code that allows them to have fast path to resolution when there are any issues that arise. It covers both hardware and software as a single point of entry, a guarantee of the 30-minute response time, but over 90% of the time they get a live call at that point, which will shoot them straight to their technical solution manager, their TSM, which of a lot of our clients give the feedback that these are really integral parts of how they view their team. They're viewed as like an in-house resource. They have a lot of touch points together where they're constantly working together to make sure that they're in sync. The TSM is going to be familiar with the client's environment to be able to provide proactive recommendations and a maintenance support plan for that client that's taking into account how they're running their systems, their SAP systems. They're going to make sure that they manage their calls. And then they're also going to help them with the proactive piece of that, with mitigating issues before they even impact business through the analytical reports that they share with them through the support plan. Through Proactive, they'll also have that access to the web-based portal where they have analytical insights on the health of their systems and proactive recommendations. And then again, it's fully customizable for our clients if they want to have those meetings on a quarterly or monthly basis, or if they just want to have US citizen support that's baked into the Proactive support for SAP. So when we look at how Proactive is managing and maintaining the overall SAP environment and all the products and components that are connected with that, that's leveraging both our direct in-house teams and also our center of excellence for SAP. So IBM has a robust support plan in place for how we support SAP under Proactive, and that marries well across the entire platform. As we know, Proactive not only connects with the Power systems, but also the Linux. So in looking at the relationship between SAP HANA, Power, and also SUSE, you can see that with proactive layered on top, it's able to help our clients to run their systems optimally, resiliently, and also have them 100% supported in sync across the entire platform for how they're leveraging these systems. So it's a great relationship, a great service to leverage with your clients. So I'm going to pass it back to you, Eric, to delve more into SUSE and SAP.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. So yeah, so we talked a little bit about SUSE and IBM, IBM and SAP. Now let's talk a little bit about SAP and SUSE. So SUSE has had a 20-year partnership with SAP as well, and they've had a lot of firsts, right? So they were the first SAP HANA on IBM Power, the first Linux with the HA clustering certified, the first little Indian Linux on IBM Power, kernel live patching, which we'll touch on in just a little bit. So a lot of firsts. They've had a very strong relationship and is really the preferred platform for many of the SAP solutions. So why would that be? Well, SUSE is SAP's trusted in-house platform. So what that means is their HANA Enterprise Cloud, it runs on SUSE Enterprise Server for SAP applications. Their SAP Data Hub runs on SUSE's CAS and Enterprise Storage, as well as their SUSE Linux Enterprise Server. SAP HANA and Data Hub are in containers running on SUSE Linux Enterprise Server. So really, this is what they're using for their environment is SUSE. In fact, I know that they have their headquarters, they're almost right across the street from each other. So, you know, there's a lot of synergy there that goes into the SUSE and SAP relationship. And it really helps them be a reference point for development on the platform for SAP. So SUSE is there, and they have a lot of synergy being able to talk to each other and develop on this platform. So these, I'm going to throw out some numbers here. This deck is a little old, so these numbers may have changed. But like I said, SUSE is the preferred OS for SAP customers. So 70% of SAP applications are on Linux that are running SUSE. 90+% of SAP HANA installations are on SUSE Linux, and close to 100% of those HANA installations are on IBM Power. So 3,000 plus customers. And 100% of the SAP Business One deployments are running SUSE currently. So a very strong relationship. And this is how they packaged the SUSE Enterprise Server for SAP applications. They really put it together in kind of a stack here. So you've got the SUSE Linux Enterprise Server, so the main OS. They've built in a lot of components that are add-ons with the SAP application that are different from the just the typical SUSE Linux Enterprise Server. So they've included a high availability extension, SAP monitoring feature, YAST extensions for SAP, deployment automation, SAP cluster connector, HA resource agents, and SAP tooling for SAP Tune and cluster tools. And then really they've given a extended life or additional overlay support. Typically SUSE on their regular server products, it's a life cycle of 10 years. They actually have expanded that to 13 years on the SUSE Linux Enterprise Server for SAP applications. And they have some additional solutions to be able to help you manage this. So they've got SUSE Live Patching, SUSE Manager, and SUSE Storage. But we're going to talk about just the Live Patching and SUSE Manager today. Here's some additional exclusive features that come with the technology. So SAP HANA Firewall, there is an install wizard that's included. Transitional support, so from Windows to Linux. Watchdog support on LPAR, and analyzation tool. Again, the SAP cluster upgrade automation is built in. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the SUSE Manager and how that relates to IBM Power and live patching on IBM Power. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about SUSE Linux Enterprise live patching. So basically, live patching is live kernel patching to keep the SAP system stable and secure. No interruptions in workload, no performance impact, no downtime, no audit concerns, and it's available on version 12 SP3. Now, I'm a sales guy, so at heart, so I need high-level overview. I need to break this down, and I'm a visual guy. So what that means is that there's CVEs that come out and vulnerabilities. And what happens is there will be a vulnerability that'll come out. A system admin will look at that and say, all right, we need to go ahead and fix that. We need to apply a kernel to update and fix that vulnerability, which in doing so, they have to reboot the system when they do that patch on there. So what happens here is we have multiple CVEs that come out at multiple times during the year, which means that you're having to bring down your system to patch the kernel as these vulnerabilities come out, which creates downtime. And again, Rich, thanks for setting me up here. The goal is they want to try and get that, 5 nines or 6 nines, right? The higher uptime. So what live patching does is a security vulnerability will come out. A system administrator will administer the live patch or fix the vulnerability. And then this live patching will allow them to keep running without any interruption. Sorry, did I go back? I went back, sorry. Without any interruption. And the system admin doesn't need to reboot the system, which allows those critical applications that they're running and mission critical systems to stay online. So we're able to do these patches and continue to keep the system up, to keep that 5 nines and trying to keep your systems online as much as possible, because downtime creates loss, right? Depending on the application and what they're using, if it's mission critical, that can create lost revenue for the customer. So this is a very important feature that allows them to have the ability to fix these patches and these CVE vulnerabilities that come out in real time. Okay, so virtual persistent memory. Rich talked a little bit about that. So it really allows you to restart the system much faster, as he talked about. I'm going to skip over this because he did such a good job on describing that. We know what it is. So the question is with that virtual persistent memory, do we really need the live patching? And really they come hand in hand, right? They're working together. So the virtual persistent memory gives them the ability to reboot faster, right? It's faster time bringing the system up. And then live patching works to where you only have to bring that system down during a planned downtime, right? You can plan your downtime and say, all right, we're going to be down at this time. And to minimize that downtime, we've got these two solutions that really work hand in hand to make sure that they have the least amount of downtime. All right, so we've talked about downtime. Let's talk a little bit about SUSE Manager. With live patching, it's really a compelling feature, because what it does is SUSE Manager on Power really gives you a single pane of glass to see into your environment. SUSE Manager allows you to do asset management, provisioning, package management, patch management, configuration management, redeployment, really all in one spot. So you have your health monitoring, compliance, and security. It helps optimize their operations while reducing cost and complexity, because you've got it all on a single pane of glass, ensuring compliance so that you can even run a report. So we just talked about those CVEs that come out. Let's just say a VP of IT comes to the system admin and says, hey, where are we at on these CVEs, and have you patched that? With SUSE Manager, they can pull a report. They will tell which ones have been patched and when they were patched, and he can just pull that report, print it out, hand it right to the VP of IT and say, here you go, here's where we're at. And being able to really have that vision into your environment and be able to help reduce, any hiccups there, right? So reduces that complexity, having to run manual reports to see what's been patched and what hasn't. So really the two work hand in hand with live patching, SUSE Manager being able to see in your environment, and IBM Power and SAP. Now I talked a little bit about this before, extended service pack overlap support. This gives you the ability to go 13 years of life cycle versus the 10 years. So it's 3 years extended support. There is 4.5 years of life cycle per service pack. And really there's an overlap migration time frame of about 3.5 years, which typically that isn't what they have. They typically have 2 years on that service pack. And then they do have the ability to have long-term service support available in the last version. So even if you need to go beyond those 13 years, they do have long-term service support available as well too, really to help them extend their time on SAP and give them time to be able to upgrade to the next version of OS. SUSE has a great training and certification program. That's just at https://partner.suse.com. Great place to get sales training. You can get technical support training. They do have the SUSE certified administrator. Really, it's just on-demand courses that you can go and learn more about SUSE and their OS. And they do have an asset library that you can pull content from. So a great resource to be able to learn a little bit more about SUSE and the relationship that they have with SAP. Client use case, we do have clients that have looked for a more versatile platform to run their existing SAP environment, had them move over to IBM System Power, and really use that proactive support for Linux on SAP. You know, really frees up resources for them with the technicians, internal staff, being able to free them up for other projects. And really this helps them have a single point of support to where they can make one call. If you want details on this, we can definitely provide that with the customer information. We also have customer references for those that have moved over to SAP and SUSE with the Power systems. And those are some references there. With that, I think I've covered everything. Is there any Q&A or anything that I need to address?
No, I don't see anything in the Q&A or in the chat. If you do have questions, please put it in the Q&A or the chat, and we will address them, whether it's on IBM Power, storage, or services. Awesome, awesome. Look like we don't have any questions or at this time. Eric, thank you so much for that presentation. I want to thank Rich also, and Shay, and Earl, and Jose for helping our partners get acclimated to the SAP HANA solutions that IBM provides. And thank all our business partners for joining and those who are listening in. Our next session is going to be on October the 8th. And it's going to be on business resiliency. So if you want to know about business resiliency from an IBM perspective, please join us on October the 8th. Same bat channel, same bat time. Bring your family and your friends, and we'll help you with business resiliency from an IBM perspective. Thank you so much, and thank you for all those who are chatting saying this was very informative. We will load it on our website where the business partners can quickly get access to the replay.